Welcome to the Golf Podcast, presented by Golficity, where we bring you the tips, instruction, and support you need to get the most out of your golf game. And now your hosts, Frank and Mike.
Hey, welcome to the 82nd episode of the Golf Podcast. We've got a fun treat, and if you hear some background noise, that's the reason, because we're broadcasting from the media tent at the Barclays at Plainfield Country Club in New Jersey. Mike, always loved doing this show. Last year we were in Ridgewood. A lot of fun to get out there and see what we can see and learn from the pros, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exciting for me because I was able to play the course 2 weeks ago. So to see these guys come and tackle it, it's just a really cool thing. And I know we're going to talk about this, just what we're seeing, how these pros, go through the drills that they go through. And even more so, Frank, watching the amateurs that they're playing with in the Pro-Am and the mistakes they're making and, different things like that. And just, it's great to see golfers from all different levels playing from the pro down to the average Joe.
Absolutely. And if you're new to the show at all, let's just quickly give you a quick overview. For the most part, we don't cover the PGA Tour or things like that. This show is for amateur golfers like myself, like Mike, learning how to play the game. But what we like about this, and the reason we come here each year and do this, is because we still think there's a lot to be learned from, like Mike was saying, not only watching the pros, watching the amateurs, and just kind of getting an idea, because there's a lot of things that you don't see. If you only tune in on Sunday, you don't see what goes on here. We're here on a Wednesday watching the Pro-Am. Mike was here yesterday on Tuesday for some of the practice rounds. These pros put in so much work, and that's what we want to kind of give you guys a little bit of a taste of. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump around the course a little bit, cover a couple different things, tell you what we're seeing, tell you what we can learn from it. Before we do that, I just want to thank everybody for the great reviews that have been coming in on iTunes. Just a couple that I want to highlight that really just, again, I love seeing these. This feedback is just, it's exciting for us. Mike and I read every single one of them. We had one came in from Hooper Sonic saying, "This is my favorite golf podcast so far. This podcast is for beginners and seasoned vets alike. Frank and Mike always have great advice." Thank you very much for that. And if you need improvement in your game or just love talking about golf, this podcast is for you. So that was great to see.
Yeah.
The other one came in from Badger Hound, who said, "The hosts don't talk over their audience. Their game is very much the same as ours." Here's the key. He says, "If we're bold enough to admit it." And the episode he said on how to build your own indoor golf simulator on a budget was excellent. So we'll recap that as the winter gets closer, because I'm sure there's a lot of guys who are going to want to do that. But that is so key, and that's why I like to see where you're saying bold enough to admit it. That's the real thing here. You got to be willing to make the mistakes. And we talked about before, like, it doesn't help your game to kind of fudge the score or pick up or do things like that. We all know this is a work in progress. You can always get better. There is no perfect score in golf. So that's what it's about, being humble, admitting where you're at. Talking about humble, Mike, just kind of jumping around. What I was so impressed with is I was a fan before, but now really seeing him, Jordan Spieth out there, What a great guy, right?
Yeah, the funny comment about the amateur.
Yes.
About to hit his shot, and he said, "Hey, heads up, everyone. These guys don't do it every day."
Right. But he's just, there's a lot of different personalities out here. I mean, we won't get too much into that, but one thing that I was always impressed with, and everywhere we run into him out there, he's got to be one of the nicest guys out there. He talks to everybody, signs all the kids' autographs. I mean, I was supporting him before, but I can't support him enough now. But Mike, without that, without getting into too much of that, let's just jump right out there. Let's get out there on the first fairway and see what we can find out.
Sure, let's do it.
All right, Mike and I are here on the first hole at the Barclays Plainfield Country Club. Mike, what can we learn from this? Now, you had the chance actually, a week ago or so, you got to play this with the media outing.
Yeah.
So what did you find? What can we learn from a course like this?
Well, what you could see immediately, the course is in fantastic shape. We don't see any greens in the background, but these greens are ridiculously hard. A lot of people all week have been talking about the false fronts and things like that. But the most important thing is this rough. I don't know if you can see the shaggiest rough possible. I talked about this on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, but your ball goes in this rough, forget about it. So course management here is key. Accuracy is key. Even as an amateur, if you do play a course like this, you don't want to just get up and whack a driver and hope that it makes in the fairway, because you're easily going to get double bogey or even triple. So it's important to get it in the fairway and make some really good safe shots, because this rough is brutal.
Absolutely. And the other thing, too, I think we can learn from this, and we just saw an amateur here in the Pro-Am take his lumps a little bit. Yeah. But if you do go into something like this, sometimes it's just the best idea is just like we talk about, just play a smart course management and just punch it out, take a wedge, just get it up and out and back in the fairway, because that fairway it's beautiful. It's like a carpet out there, and that's where you can kind of score. So something like here, if you were in the rough trying to, do what the pros are doing, see what they're doing with these long irons out of here, it's not necessarily something that's fitted for our game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a tough course, and it certainly chewed me up.
I bet. All right, let's check out some other areas of the course. All right, Mike, so we're back. So there was a lot that we could learn there, like we talked about. You got the chance to play this. We talked about that rough. I mean, even just walking through it was kind of amazing, right?
Yeah, walking through it and then just seeing these guys, how laser-like they are and putting the ball in the fairway from the pro standpoint. And then right after that, Frank, seeing these amateurs all go into the rough. So that kind of makes me think about my own game. And when I did play here a couple weeks ago, I found that rough maybe 12, 13 holes out of the 18. I did not hit a lot of fairways here. It's a tough course. It's not like our average local, community course. But, to understand the game and understand course management and, leaving the driver in the bag when you have to, you don't really get that until you play a course like this. I think after the 5th, 7th, or 8th hole, I think I left the driver in the bag because I just wanted that ball in the fairway. But not a lot of people do that. They figure driver off the tee, and that's it.
Right, and that's why we talked about the importance of being conservative, trying to punch it out. And also just knowing what your capability is so important. For instance, what we saw two shots played very similarly by two. I shouldn't say played similarly. They were similar lies played completely differently by two different players. We saw the one amateur trying to hit the hybrid out of the deep rough, and couldn't get it out. He ended up having to hit he was still he went maybe 15 yards. He had to still hit his wedge to pop it into the fairway.
Right.
Other side of the story was Jordan Spieth, that amazing shot. We'll throw that on YouTube for sure, on our YouTube channel. I got to grab the quick video of that, but his amazing shot with his hybrid from the deep rough. The difference being Jordan's practiced that shot a million times. He knows he can play it, and that's why he does. Whereas the amateur, it's that mindset of saying, let's make up that distance. That's not what Jordan's come from. Jordan knows that that's a shot that he can play. So, again, it's knowing your game, knowing what you can play, and being realistic about it. That's so important.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind Jordan's swing speed versus the amateurs through that heavy rough certainly helped him get the ball 260 yards, where you and I would advance that thing 130 maybe with the 4-iron or whatever. But I mean, but exactly, a lot of guys will try to muscle it up. They'll try to feel like they need to make up ground because they're far away from the hole and they need to swing through it really hard. And then all it does, it ends up hurting you. And, I think sometimes the best thing to do is swallow your pride, grab a wedge, get it out to the fairway.
Absolutely. So now let's switch gears. Let's talk about the opposite end of the spectrum. We talked about being conservative out of the rough, taking your lumps, playing that wedge, whatever it may be. Now there's the other side of the coin where sometimes you can play a little bit too conservatively, right? So let's jump back out there. I think this was the 15th hole where you ended up playing it a little bit too conservative and it hurt you a bit, right?
Right.
All right, let's jump out there now. All right, Mike, so we just jumped over to the 15th hole, and this one I want to talk about because it's an important counterpoint to what we were saying about playing conservatively from the rough, which is still important because we just watched that amateur try to pull off what Spieth did with a hybrid from the rough, and he got nowhere, right?
Right, it's a classic example of finding the other fairway and then trying to be a hero coming back, and instead of playing it safe, he ended up, Frank, behind a garbage can?
Yeah, so there's an importance, obviously, of playing conservatively, but the counterpoint to that, Mike, here's a hole, the 15th hole, par 4, short par 4, that you ended up playing perhaps too conservatively, right?
Right. I mean, I should have took driver here because, it's definitely a driver hole, but I decided to drop down to about a 4 or 5 iron, I believe, and I just ended up getting off the tee pretty weak. I pushed it right. I was in the heavy rough, and then I actually ended up in a couple of bunkers, and I think I put up, maybe triple bogey on this hole when it should have been an easy 4, if not 5. So there's a classic example of playing it too conservatively. Probably should have just stuck with my driver and went with the usual route.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Just got to watch out.
We got just teed off right over your head. Wow. Okay.
Man, he hits a long ball. But, yeah, that's exactly right. So the thing here, too, is we talk about course management and stuff like that. So it can be a slippery slope to get a little too conservative, take a short par 4 and just say, I just want to put it out there. And the problem with that is, sometimes it can be a smart play, but the problem can be when you start to get a little bit too much away from your normal style of play. Like if you're comfortable with your driver, if those types of things, and you start trying to do too much and playing almost, quote unquote, too smart, you can get yourself in trouble. So good to know, absolutely. Let's kind of Let's get out of the way here before we get hit with the ball.
Definitely. Let's do it.
All right, and we're back. So that's where you see where that real course management can come in. It works both ways. It's knowing the game, knowing what you're comfortable with, and not being, being conservative, being smart, but not being overly conservative. So it was really interesting to see that. I mean, a short par 4, these guys are still hitting driver. That's where, Mike, your driver's back working for you. So that's where you might have been more comfortable playing that for sure. Another quick thing before we go over to the putting green. Another quick thing that I want to talk about that I find so amazing is these guys, and when you really can't pick it up as much on TV. We do a little bit, we talk about it, but when you're here and you see it, their amazing ability for ball striking is what really impresses me every time. And I start to realize the more I look at it, and these guys, Mike, some of these guys, they're not huge builds, nothing like that. They're driving the ball a mile. I mean, they're able to power it, so to speak, quote unquote, power it out of the rough. But what we're seeing is that it's a lot more relying on the physics rather than the power. And what I mean by that is these guys know about how to really compress a ball. They know a perfect ball strike, hitting down on that ball and taking the divot afterwards. What that does is it causes that ball to compress and climb up the club face. And really they get that backspin, they get that launch angle, all those things that are really giving them that distance. So it seems a lot like power. But in reality, it has to do largely with physics. And what these guys are doing, too, is that they're able to repeat that over and over and over again because they're hitting right in the middle of that club face. So even just the sound it makes, Mike, is amazing to me. When you see how smooth, like, right? I mean, Jordan, that hybrid was like 200-something yards from the rough, and it just seemed like smooth.
So smooth. And, let me ask you a question. If a pro took 10 swings, the same shot, how many of those swings would have the same swing plan?
I would have to say 10 of them.
Right. And we probably change it, I don't know, maybe twice it would be the same or 3 times, because a lot of us will change things, or we're thinking about something different, or we're trying to play a shot that we're not equipped to do, and therefore we don't get that compression that you're talking about, and we're chunking the ball, we're hitting before it, or we're hitting after it, and we're hitting it to the right or to the left. So, to see these guys do it, I mean, you can really learn a lot by just sitting out on a range or coming to one of these days, pro events, and just watching how these guys strike the ball.
Absolutely can. And not only that, what it translates to, not just the swing plane, but if you were to ever put a little bit of like that impact tape on the face of one of the clubs for the pros versus us, and you could see that scatter pattern of where they're hitting it. It's amazing how much they're doing that. So anybody who's a newer golfer, or just anybody who wants to improve their game, that's one area you can really do that. It's very cheap. You can pick it up on Amazon. So just some of that impact tape, and for a minute, just kind of put away and forgetting all those other parts of your swing, and just focus on just striking that ball center club face, and just making that good impact with the ball, and see what happens. And if you can work on that, I mean, theoretically, the rest of it doesn't really matter and how you get there. I say that kind of half kiddingly.
Right.
But what I'm saying is there's a lot to be learned from just that, because you're seeing it and you're seeing the impacts that these guys are making are so great. Mike, before we go to the putting green, a little behind-the-scenes fun stuff that we kind of run into here. You were talking to the caddies the other day. Tell us a little bit about the yardage books. That's something I never realized.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. Actually, one of the players, he didn't have his yardage book yet. He was heading over to the range for his practice session. And I believe it was Zach, maybe Zach Johnson. You mentioned over to the woman who brought it to him, they didn't have his credit card with him. So,
right. Here's a guy who just won the Open Championship, which is hilarious that they're making him pay more than it is.
I know, exactly. Right. You would think that each player would get a yardage book for free.
You would think.
It would be part of the package. I mean, they get all the food here, they get everything catered to them. But I thought he was making a joke, Frank. And she said, "Don't worry about it. I know how to find you." And she made a little laugh, and then I that's when I reached over and said, "You guys have to pay for your yardage books, and they're about $150 per tournament. But these things are packed. They give you every bit of information about every part of every hole." Yeah. So, but just to find out that these guys have to pay for that, it's pretty cool. It's pretty funny, actually.
I thought that was hilarious, too. I mean, just the thought of Zach Johnson whipping out the credit card to pay for a $100 yardage book was just a laugh. But that's a lot of the great behind-the-scenes kind of things you get to see when you're here. And we've talked about this last year, so people who heard that episode might remember. But I want to reiterate again, too. If you're a fan of the game, if people, if one of these tournaments come within your area, I'd say pick up a ticket and go to one of the rounds. It could be the early rounds, the weekend rounds. It doesn't really matter. It's just amazing to me how much you can kind of learn when you see it, just see it here firsthand. There's just so much going on. The guys are so friendly. All the tour players, the PGA Tour themselves as hosts really couldn't be any better. The volunteers everywhere are so nice. It's a really nice kind of sporting event to go to. I mean, some other things can be hectic, crowded, whatever. We see a lot of kids here. It's great. You can, it's good for the families. I just really can't emphasize it enough. And for a golfer, you kind of see, and what's really cool too is we see a lot of times all the guys who are watching it, they're players too, the fans. Right. So they all kind of get to talking. We're out there, we're talking about, I would hit a 7-iron from here. What would you do? And it's really kind of cool. It's kind of like being here on the show. We just kind of talk about these things a little bit.
Yeah, that's the toughest part about being here is, I want to play so bad.
Oh, I know.
I want to hop in one of these foursomes with these guys. And, if money was no object, Frank, I would play in every single Pro-Am I can, because it would be such a cool experience. I mean, we got guys, we just saw one of the guys walking down the fairway with Phil Mickelson, just chatting with him. Who knows what they're talking about?
Right.
But it's got to be something golf-related, and maybe he's asking him something about his swing. And I'm sure some of these guys are really cool, and they're helpful. I mean, yes. I've seen many videos, and I've seen many a recent piece on Golf Channel with Ricky Fowler. He was talking about amateurs in the Pro-Am and things that he notices. So if these guys notice it, then they're probably sharing those pearls of wisdom with these guys, and that would be a really cool thing to do.
Absolutely. It's an expensive lesson.
Yeah, it's got to be $10,000 to $25,000, depending on where
play
you
in
are.
That, right.
What kind of tournament it is.
But there's a lot to pick up. But there's even, like I said, there's a lot to pick up even just overhearing it, even if you're not playing it. A good example was out there today, Sean Foley. Right?
Yep.
We saw him out there with Justin Rose. And one thing, he was actually talking to, I don't know who it was either one of the caddies or somebody else on the side, and I just kind of overheard him, and he said something that was really interesting to me. He said that what he notices is the best players out here on tour are actually not the guys who are seemingly the most consistent. He said the best guys are the guys who are able to bounce back the quickest from when they play badly. Which I think is interesting and something we can definitely learn as amateurs because we, just like the pro, everybody has those times when they play badly. It's just a matter of how does it affect you mentally? Are you able to bounce back? Are you able to recover by seeing, and that's why a lot of these guys have those swing coaches out there following them around. Right. Because the swing coach is able to see it quicker. But there's so many things that we can use as resources. Videotaping it with your phone. If you're in a slump, grab your phone, have your buddy videotape it, go back, look at it and see, what do I have going on here? Is there something that, maybe something with my swing that's not normal, whatever it may be. But that was a great thing to know is that even these guys struggle, and the guys who he said to perform the best are the ones who can bounce back the quickest.
Yeah, and, for those of you who don't know, Foley is Justin Rose's swing coach, and he was Tiger's until Tiger let him go about a year or so ago. But, that actually reminds me of the Nike 360 app. When you have a bad hole and you bounce back and make par or better, you get like a little prize for it. Right. So, little things like that. I mean, the importance of being able to bounce back because we're all going to have a blow-up hole. We talk about it all the time. You just can't let that continue for the next few holes. Otherwise, your whole day is going to be shot, and you're not going to be into it anymore. So we've talked about that extensively, and it's a key point, very important.
It absolutely is. So let's go now over to the Putt and Green, because again, this is something that's very important and something we don't think that much of unless you kind of go to these events. You don't think about the pros spending a lot of time out there. But I would say out of all the practice areas we've been, we go to the chipping area, we go to the driving range. I think this is where they spend the most time. So let's just shoot over there, see what kind of aids and tips and things like that and practice drills they're using that maybe we can kind of replicate to improve our game. All right, Mike, this is one of my favorite spots, really, just going down here to the putting practice green and seeing what these guys are doing. We did this last year. We learned a lot from some of the drills, but amazed as always to see so many of the fundamentals that these guys are practicing. And we talked a lot about alignment sticks, and now we've seen these guys are using them even on the putting green, making sure they're aligned. We saw Zach Johnson doing like what I would call like an advanced gate drill. We talked about the gate drill with the tees. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite drills. I know we talked about, my three favorite a couple episodes ago, and the gate drill is definitely one of them. We're seeing a lot of guys do that, and now, Frank, you got a lot of guys using these weird devices here. Like one guy's got it looks like, is that a level? It looks like he's trying to feel the green and see, he's got his two fingers in front of him. It's Hunter Mahan's crew right here. His two fingers in front of him trying to see the slope of the green to see which way it kind of goes. And then we saw Ian Poulter over there actually using his feet to do the same thing. It's just kind of going to feel at your feet to see how the slope is going to turn, which is something amateurs don't really ever do.
Right. Yeah, I was just about to say, we saw Ian doing the same thing, and it's cool that even before they start putting, most of these guys are either by themselves or with their caddies are coming out here, and they're just walking the putting surface and feeling it, like you said, both feet, feeling the balance. There's just so much that can be learned. I mean, assuming, here we are at a top caliber course, assuming that your putting surface, your practice putting surface is going to be rolled the same way that the other ones are, and it's going to be consistent, but just amazing. And again, what I'm always amazed by is how much time they spend here.
Yeah, and I've, like I said, I played this course, and I've actually practiced on this exact practice green before I went out, and these greens were identical to the greens out on the course. They were about 13 on the stimp meter, like billiards, like pool tables, so fast, lightning quick, and it's probably the most important practice area that this week, especially at this course for the players.
Yeah, and one thing too, I mean, aside from this, just when we were walking the fairways earlier, that I found that was so amazing is how calm these guys are. I know it's Wednesday, they haven't started the real rounds yet, but just generally the air about these guys, it's very calculating, it's very, just a lot of calmness coming from them, and it's just something to learn from, even from that mental side of the game, of a way to play, because you can see that difference, the tension of the amateurs playing versus the pros, and it's just amazing, because if you really think about it, the pros are ones who have more on the line, but yet they're so much calmer in their demeanor.
Yeah, it's funny. You see the stress meter rise from Tuesday all the way to Sunday for sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's go back into the tent. All right, Mike, we're back. So that advanced gate drill that Zach Johnson was doing was pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I mean, but it was like a little piece with some directional lines in it to kind of line up his shot, but then he had the tees. I don't think
he had about 5 tees, creating and then rather than just 2 tees across from each other from a gate, he was kind of extending that out. So the picture 3 tees across, and then parallel to that closer 2 tees. So he actually had to pass through a longer gate.
Yeah.
Which is cool, because that's keeping him on a plane even longer than just pass through. And what was amazing is that gate wasn't much more than a couple millimeters wider than his putter, and he never touched those tees. Yeah,
it was pretty interesting to see. I mean, these guys have tons of different drills. I mean, we just talked about the drill that Hunter Mahan's caddy. He has a level, which is great. He's actually trying to see which way the green is running for that particular practice green. It's not even a real green on the course. It's just a practice green, but he's trying to get it ready for him to kind of practice his stroke, get a feel for the greens. And Frank, we don't put this much effort into practicing putting. Not at all. I mean, what these guys do. I mean, I was here yesterday, and I just sat and watched Jason Day putt for about 30 minutes. I mean, it was brutally hot out, and this guy was just nonstop. He was probably out here before I got here, and he was probably out after I left.
Right.
So it's amazing to see the preparation these guys put in with their short game.
And some of us may say we don't have necessarily the luxury to come out before our round and do what they do. But a couple things. First of all, most of the guys are hitting these putting greens even after their round. You notice that? The guys who did the morning rounds, they're out here, they're still doing it. So sometimes after things, maybe you made your tee times, things lighten up, you can go over to the putting green, put your practice session in then. It really depends on when you want to work it in. Or you can, just like we make time to go to the driving range, we said before, make a half hour to go to the putting green and then do that. But what I think the most important takeaway again is that these guys they don't have anything fancy out there. I mean, we see the TrackMans, but that's in different areas, whatever. But there's no so fancy, crazy thing that you don't have access to that they're doing on these putting greens. They're using tools that help them with their fundamentals. How about the alignment stick?
Yeah, all stuff we can use.
Right. Very simply, these guys are setting an alignment stick across their toes while they're putting to make sure they're properly lined up there, just like you would be on the range. So there's just so many things, and they're so easy, and it doesn't cost you a thing. Because, we're talking about a cheap alignment stick and a couple tees is what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, that's it.
These guys are playing for millions of dollars, and that's what they're using. So it just shows you can do it. There's ways that you can get your game and practice like the pros so that you can perform at that higher level. So, like I said, a lot we learned out here. Mike, been a beautiful day, beautiful weather out here walking the course. Again, one thing that always amazes me, they talk about the popularity of golf is waning a little bit, especially Tiger not making, the playoffs this year. But I'll tell you what, you don't see it when you're here. They got some nice crowds. Nice and busy, and a lot of excitement.
Yeah, I think the game, I think it's actually okay. You got these young guns winning, You know, you got the Fowler fans, you got the Spieth fans. You know, you still have the big name players, you know, without Tiger that people come out to watch. But, you know, I think it's still an exciting sport. And, you know, if you are going to come out here, I would, you know, try to grab a media day ticket. You know, the fans can come out on a Tuesday or Wednesday, watch the Pro-Am. You know, I know, you know, you like to come to the actual tournament, which is always good too. But I would much rather be here before the tournament because I like to watch these amateurs play on a course like this together with the pro.
Yeah.
You know, I like to see how they both do it different. Because then you can compare right there in front of your own eyes.
Right. And if you have kids, like during the summer when the kids are off and you know, you want to get them interested or they're getting into the game, this is a great time to come. You know, Wednesday, whatever it may be, before the rounds really start. So they're so much more accessible to players. The players are going right up to the kids. They're taking selfies with them.
Yep.
They're signing autographs. And you don't kind of have to worry about, you know, your kid getting kind of trampled over because the crowds are really thin earlier in the week. So if you do have kids and you want to get them into it, this is a great way to do it. They can kind of see the excitement of what's going on out here because you can kind of feel it. It's more tangible here than it would be just going out ourselves. You can feel the excitement here. So that's what's really great. All right, so that's everything we have this week. Again, we're going to be back out there. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, because a lot of this stuff that we have here while we're here, we're posting it there too, so you can get a little bit extra. But we're going to jump back out there. Again, appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully you learned a little bit of something from what we're seeing here and what we're able to describe because, like I said, the pros, they're playing it at the highest possible level. Although that seems like a stretch for some of us, there's a lot that can be learned, and even if it just shaves a couple strokes off your game by picking up some tidbit from them, then it's absolutely worth it. Also, I want to thank again everybody who left the reviews on iTunes. If you could please keep those coming, we love reading those reviews. Just grab your phone, leave us a quick review. You can also leave them on Spreaker, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And you can get in contact with us by tweeting us at Golficity. Or you can email us directly at podcast@golficity.com. It's a great way to get in touch with us. And you know what? That reminds me, we're going to talk a little bit more about this in future episodes. But one thing I want to get started here, and I think this will be fun, Mike, is if you're out there, if you're listening, if you have a question, whether it be about your game, instructional-wise, or if it's about your rules, we've been talking a little bit about the rules more, a great thing you can do and a great way to kind of get us to cover that on the show is use your phone. You know, iPhones I know do this. I'm sure the Androids do as well, where you can record a quick voice message. Record a 15-second clip of yourself asking the question and email it to us at podcast@golficity.com. Just email the clip on over. And what we'll do is we'll sort through them and as the shows go on, we'll play your clip up right here on the show and then we'll answer your question. So,
great idea. I love it.
Yeah, let's get those coming in. So definitely do that. Podcast@golficity.com. Send in your clip. And if you can't do that and you just want to send your question, as always, you can email them in. We've had a number of great suggestions of people emailing them, tweeting them in. We just had somebody asking us about wanting to know, like, if let's do an episode on setting small goals to reach the bigger goals. That's a great topic. I'm sure we're going to cover that in the future. So keep those coming. We do listen, and we do want to know what you guys want to learn because we're learning, too, as we go. All right, Mike, do you have anything else?
No, that's all I have. But you know what? I want to just give one quick shout-out because we're at the end of the season, and I got to give our fantasy staff a huge shout-out this year. I don't know how many of you out there play fantasy sports, whether it be on Golf Channel or PGA TOUR.com or even DraftKings, which is so popular. These guys, Frank, I mean, they picked all 4 major winners this year.
It's crazy.
You know, and if you're a gambling person or you just love playing the friendly competition in the office, I mean, check out the picks if you haven't done so already. It's such a cool thing, and it's becoming more and more popular. So I just wanted to give them a great shout-out because this year they've nailed it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just amazing that the stats, the way they came in this year. And you can check out more of that, like Mike said, by going to golficity.com and just clicking on fantasy at the top of the page, and you'll be able to see all the picks from week to week. All right, so that's everything we have. Thanks for coming along on this little ride with us to the Barclays. We're going to get back out there and see what else we can learn, and then we'll be back again next week with even more. We'll talk to you then.